Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to another episode of GEEXX Watch. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of history first. When I was a kid growing up in a small mid-coast town, Maine, of roughly 5,000 people, there was no cable. There were basically three channels. There was NBC on Channel 6, ABC on Channel 8, CBS on Channel 13. We also had the public broadcasting system, the public free channel on Channel 10. So we got shows like Sesame Street and, Mr. Rogers and Electric Company, all those lovely kid shows I used to watch during the daytime. But the local PBS channel had something they called BBC Tuesdays. That was where on every Tuesday from like 4 or 5 o'clock until like 10, like 6 hours or so, like from like 4 p.m. to like 10 p.m. Maybe sometimes I think 11 p.m. I'm not sure exactly how long it was, but for basically the early to late evening, they would play British television shows they imported from BBC. That's where I found things like Monty Python and Doctor Who, but also other shows like they showed everything: Upstairs, Downstairs, All Creatures Great and Small, The Prisoner, just a lot of really good, quirky British television shows. They also had Mystery, which I'm not sure if it was a British show or not. I think it was. But because of PBS, I got to see a show called Rumpole of the Bailey, which you'll see over my shoulder picture of back there. Rumpole of the Bailey was based on a series of novels, actually. They made a TV show. There were 6 seasons. The character of Rumpole himself is a, slightly older gentleman, late 40s, early 40s, mid 40s kind of guy. Just this, crotchety, what's the word I'm looking for? Not crotchety. Curmudgeonly. He was curmudgeonly. He was a curmudgeonly guy, kind of, mildly sexist because I think he was born like 1930s. The show takes place in the era in which it was filmed, so 1970s, 60s and 70s, 80s, I guess. I'm not sure how it was on for 6 seasons, but because of its British television, the series weren't always consecutive, like year after year. So the show took place in the late 60s, early to mid 70s, late 70s, early 80s kind of thing. Whatever. Anyway, he's this curmudgeonly barrister. I'm gonna have to maybe explain some terms because I'm gonna be using British terms because that's what I learned from the show. A barrister is the equivalent of a lawyer. Rumpole is a public defendant. He has a shabby office, a shabby suit, secondhand robes and a wig, smokes cheap cigars, goes to this dive pub near his chambers. Chambers is his office, where he drinks cheap claret, which is kind of like a cheap red wine, which he constantly calls, equivalent to the River Thames, which was polluted at the time. He's just this, gravelly voiced, straight talking guy. And as a public defender, he doesn't make a lot of money. His wife, Hilda, is the daughter of a judge, and she keeps pressuring Rumpole to take more serious and profitable cases. She's not a major part of the show. The show doesn't show a lot of his home life. It's mostly about his cases, but you do get images of his home life. His wife Hilda, whom he refers to as she who must be obeyed. He doesn't speak well of his wife often, but you can tell at times that he really does care about her. She pressures him to become, take more profitable cases, maybe become a judge like her father. She's very much into wanting to rise in the social circles, which he won't do in the jobs that he's taking. But he likes being a public defendant. He likes, defending people who need defending. And it may surprise some of our younger audience that back in those days, the 70s, public defenders were not as reviled as they are in today's television. There were a lot of shows which showed, you know, people who are public defenders defending people who the police have accused incorrectly, people who are framed by circumstance, or people who feel they need to. There's one case, I think it's in season 1, where a man is accused of something and he seems reluctant to defend himself, and it turns out he's covering for someone else. He's accepting the blame for something because he's covering for someone else. So, you know, shows like Law and Order show public defenders as being scum of the earth. And the shows I grew up on, that wasn't the case. You have shows like Perry Mason, who was a defender, defended people from being, the public defenders defended people from being falsely accused, people of being railroaded by the system. And Rumpole does admit that some of the people he defends are crooks, but mostly they're petty criminals. You know, people who are, you know, small time hoods, you know, who deserve to be defended. What's good about this is that also a lot of the show, not a lot of the show, but it does, it's more gray. You know, I mentioned Law and Order very specifically because that show is very cut and dried, black and white. The cops are always right. Even when they break the law and violate people's rights, it turns out the people who they broke the law against and people's rights they violated were actually guilty. And public defenders are scum. And that's a deliberate choice by the producer of the show, Dick Wolf. He is so pro-cop, anything that you know, he's happy to have cops beat people up in the course of their job and violate their rights. Of course, he loves cops. But politics of that show aside, Rumpole's a bit more of a gray area. He's a good person. He knows he defends people who are guilty, but they deserve to be defended. You know, they have their day in court. And he does his job well. So I like that there's a bit of, and he likes defending people. In the entire series, the entire series of the show, he's only a prosecutor one time, and he hates it. He ends the episode saying, "Never again, Rumpole for the defense for always." I love this. In case you can't tell, I've been gushing for quite a while. I loved this show growing up. I mean, I was, what, 70s, late 70s, early 80s. I was in my early 12, 13, 14, I think, maybe around that time when I was watching this show. And I just loved it. I thought it was a great show. I also love Leo McKern, the actor who portrays Rumpole. I'd seen him in other things prior to this. I've seen him in things since then. Fun fact about Leo McKern, he wasn't entirely pleased with the fact that he was playing Rumpole. He was a trained Shakespearean actor, and he worried that, like, this is what he'd be remembered for, is this TV show where he plays a shabby, curmudgeonly old barrister. So he was like, you know, on my deathbed, you know, people say, known for playing Rumpole the Bailey. He wants to be known for playing deeper roles. And I somewhat understand that, but at the same time, this was good. It was good work, and it's a good character. There are some continuity inconsistencies if you want to binge watch this show. Speaking of which, I was so excited when I found this on Amazon Prime. It's like, really, I can watch this on Amazon Prime. And then I realized it's locked behind another service. You either have to go through BritBox or PBS Masterpiece to get this, which bummed me out. It's like, oh man. It does have like a free 7-day trial for both those services. So if this sounds interesting to you, you can binge watch it really fast. There's 6 seasons, but BBC seasons are short. There's probably like 6 to 10 episodes per season. So there's maybe 40 shows, I think, during the whole thing. Maybe not even that much. I'm not sure exactly how long the seasons are. I know there's not many. British seasons tend to be very short. But if you like, if you like mystery shows, if you like, court dramas, it is dated. Like I mentioned earlier, he is kind of sexist. But he doesn't always get it. Like he doesn't like always get a free pass. Like the younger cast members, the younger people that do kind of confront him on it, but not too strongly. This was, the sexism is mentioned. It's brought up that he shouldn't be sexist, but they don't push it too hard. He doesn't really pay any consequences for being sexist. It is a product of its times. But I just love watching Leo McKern chew the scenery. I love his acting. I love his deep, gravelly voice. He likes to ramble on and quote literature and stuff. He has his favorite quotes, his favorite, I adore the character, and I adore Leo McKern, the actor. I'll watch anything he's in. I have. I do recommend this, even though, given that I've said it is a bit dated. But yeah, give it a watch. It's definitely, in my opinion, it's A material. But I also haven't gone back and rewatched it, so I'm not sure how well it holds up. Take it for what it is. It's on Amazon Prime. The 2 service has got a free 7-day trial. You can at least, pop it in and see if you like it. You can burn through the first season pretty quickly, at least. Take it for what it is. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this content, I'm not going to self-promote. I hate all that crap. It annoys me so much when people do that, which is why I self-deprecate and say you shouldn't watch my crap. Until next time, I almost shut it off first. Until next time, good hunting.